This image is very easily picked out to be fake. The biggest tell is. Hello nerds, thank you for joining me once again on Generally Nerdy. This is the week in Nerdom, where we talk about all of the pop culture entertainment nerd news that is worth talking about. Today's episode is honestly huge. I don't know how that happened, but we've got a lot of ground to cover, so without any further ado, we've got click the thumbs up and let me know, and the algorithm gods and all the things know that you like what's going on, and now let's hit the intro. That is right, we are into housekeeping for the second to last episode for the year. I told you it was coming, and I wasn't lying. So, what does this look like? So the plan for the end of the year this year is going to be slightly different than normal, because we're going to be testing different things. Very potentially there could be a few supplemental episodes beyond just the regular rumors episodes that we do during the downtime. And also potentially there will be a live stream or two on varying platforms. Probably won't make announcements, though they will get posted on the other platforms when they've been completed, assuming they go like I want them to. I think I have one or two episodes of other things that need to be cleared out from the catalog as well. Material I'm sitting on that just needs to be edited. So all of that being said, that is what this is going to look like. Again, we have one more proper episode next week. And also playing with the idea when we come back properly that we're only going to be doing one episode a week from there, so that I can get some other content up as well. Interviews, photography videos, work on the shorts a little bit, because I do the Quick and Nerdy series now, and that seems to be going fairly well. So I want to lean a little bit harder into that and be more consistent there. So in order for that to happen, we might have to scale back the week in Nerddom. All of that being said, let's get into the reason you're still watching, and that is the Shoutouts section. Shoutouts this week, we're just going to start there and then we'll talk about the push. So, shoutouts for this week's episode, we're going to start with Facebook. We have Jeremy Wood and Paul Groom. Thank you very much, nerds, for the follows. On TikTok, it's another big-ish time for the TikToks. We have Dawson Kate 01, Alan Flannery 0, makecaytengoviral, Kyle Henderson 163. Hello, Kyle. We have Unstu Junior 5R, Ghost _space_face 8345, Muddyburritos. I think that's a great name. Also, we took Oprah's _wig. Also a great name. And then sus 4747474, and then a user randomly generated number. So thank you, nerds, for the follows. And then let's move over to Instagram. We have a couple more follows over there. We have adaycologne and derrekdominguez. Thank you very much, nerds, for the follows. We have a new YouTube subscriber that doesn't have their account settings set to private, and that is Bobby4201. Thank you very much, nerd, for the follow. So, in order to get yourself a shout out, there are a number of things you can do. You can follow me on any of the social medias. I'm on all of the social medias, all of the main ones anyway, so you should be able to find me. Just look for Generally Nerdy. Sometimes the spelling is a little bit different because reasons, but yes, you can find me on all of them. On YouTube or on Facebook, it might be a little hard for me to see that you have followed, depending on how you have your account settings. I think Instagram has this issue from time to time as well. Depending on how you have your account settings, I won't be able to see if you have certain things set to private. So if you are looking for a shout out and you don't want to change your privacy settings, give me a heads up. Let me know you've done the follow in a comment or a DM or something along those lines, and I will be sure to send you a shout out. If you just want to follow and be awesome, then thank you very much for that. Even if I can't see that you have followed me, I do appreciate everyone that follows. And the reason we're doing this push is the big important thing, because we're trying to get to a level where I get taken a little bit more seriously when I approach certain people for interviews. Right now, I can get smaller interviews or interviews that are set up through a third party, which is how I've gotten some of the larger interviews I've got. I've also just been extremely lucky with a couple of the interviews that I have done on the channel as well. So sometimes luck wins out. Most of the time, I just have to have a larger follower count. So we're pushing at least 2. I would prefer to get 3, but at least 2 of the social medias over 1,000 follows or subscribes or whatever that certain platform deems a follower. So that is the push. That is the reason for the push, is so I can up the ante for the content that we bring here on the channel. So all of that being said, either way, I love your faces. If you're just listening to my voice or watching my face say these words, then welcome, nerd. Thank you for joining me. We have some pop culture nerdy news to jump into, so let's do that. We're going to kick off the music section a little differently today because I just saw this. So, Travis Scott concert goers, you should be taking note. This is how you go to a concert and keep the well-being and safety of those around you in check. This is a metal show, mind you, not a hip-hop show. It was a giant tragedy, this Travis Scott issue. I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm just saying we need to have some responsibility for us as concert goers as well. So, that is how we're starting the music section off. Hello, nerds. Let's get into all of this news. We have a pretty huge music section for today's episode. We're just going to head right into follow-ups. We do have one follow-up. It has to do with Stabbing Westward. They put out that EP last year. Well, now they're putting out a proper record, full-length album. The name of the album is going to be Chasing Ghosts. It's coming out March 18th of 2022. This is, again, the continuation to the EP that they released previously. We are going to see those tracks from the EP resurface onto this record, obviously in newer versions of the tracks, different performances, so on and so forth, like bands are wont to do from time to time. So again, March 18th, new Stabbing Westward. Definitely going to be worth a listen. Let's move on, shall we? So we are now moving into the new music section, and that brings us to the first impression reactions, review kind of situations. Our first impression for this episode it comes from a band called Darkwood My Betrothed. Now, the reason this one piqued my interest is because Darkwood My Betrothed, one of the members of this band, also is in Nightwish. This is a black metal side project for somebody in Nightwish, which seemed like a strange combination, so I clicked and was not disappointed. So my exposure to the subgenre of black metal, generally speaking, as somebody who has played in plenty of metal bands, with plenty of metal bands, and it has been a fan of metal since I could remember, I didn't really dive too far into black metal, just because by and large it is a subgenre that is made up of very poor production value. Me being a producer, it doesn't sit well in my ears a lot of the time. I'm too critical of the art that I digest, so when it's something that I can do and I wholeheartedly believe I can do it better, I can't really get into it very well. So there are exceptions to this rule. Bands that stand out in the blackened black metal, whatever, sub-genre of metal generally are bands like Cradle of Filth, Behemoth, and the like. This will tell you how often I listen to the black metal. I have a band in mind, I can't remember their name off the top of my head, that I honestly think is the standout above the rest, and the name is escaping me, so it is what it is. But this track, the name of the track is Black Fog, and Poisoned Wind is right up there with the good production stuff that you're going to get in black metal. Honestly, this is probably some of the best black metal audio production that I have heard in quite some time. That being said, there is a bit of rock bass syndrome going on here. This is a performance issue, not a production issue, because you can hear all of the instruments very well. This producer, I did not look up who the producer is, but the producer on this track knows what he's doing with aggressive music, knows how to carve out those niches for each instrument. You can hear in certain points, and this is honestly a difficult thing to do with aggressive music, but there's obvious sections where you can hear the two different guitars even, not just guitar, bass. You can hear guitar, guitar, bass, and that is impressive when it is such a cacophonous kind of sound, which black metal generally tends to be. So very impressed producer side. Performance side, black metal is not exactly a subgenre of music that lends itself to a lot of bass experimentation, generally speaking. There's probably some black metal band out there that I don't know about that has only bass players on the strings, and I've never heard of them, so therefore I can't make such a delineation. But by and large, black metal doesn't lend itself to lots of bass experimentation. And this is no exception. Bass player's doing solid on the root. That's all he really is expected to do in this genre, so have at it, I guess. But either way, this track is super impressive. If you are even kind of into heavy music, if you are into black metal, or you want to try to get into it for whatever reason, or you're curious as to what good, quote unquote, good black metal sounds like to somebody who has produced music for a living, then you should definitely check out this track. So our next reaction, first impression, comes from a band called The Halo Effect. So if you remember last week, we talked about this band ever so briefly because they're about to go on tour with Machine Head and Amon Amarth in Europe. And it's noteworthy because they have ex-members of In Flames. In Flames is a band that has they are to metalcore kind of what Led Zeppelin is to metal, where they're not exactly part of the genre, but they birthed the genre in a lot of ways. So I was kind of excited when I saw that they put out a music video. This music video is for a song. Sorry, I must consult the notes. Shadow Minds is the name of the song. Definitely showing why they inspired a whole subgenre. And I say that because all of the elders in the metalcore scene, namely the likes of Killswitch Engage and Shadows Fall and so on and so forth, cite In Flames as inspiration for the music that they make. So this is definitely a set of veterans in the genre. And I wouldn't even put this band in that subgenre either. They are definitely a metal band. They are definitely aggressive, and they have elements of the metalcore a little bit, but by and large, there's a very Swedish kind of vibe to them. Almost death, not quite technical enough to consider them really a death metal band. And honestly, their bass player does some stuff on this track that is like super unexpected, which is always great to hear, again, to my producer's ear and also to my bass player's ear, because when you're playing speedy like this, generally speaking, it doesn't leave a whole lot of spots for the bass to do experimental things. And this guy did it. So I really dug this track. I'm really anxious to hear more from the Halo Effect. So I hope that they put out their record soon. I can't remember what the date is or anything like that, but I know they're working on it because that's why they put out this video. So if you want to hear some solid metal, just genre-wise kind of nondescript metal, but that's not a bad thing. They dip their feet into a lot of different pools, and they're all the better for it. So this is definitely a recommend on the Shadow Minds track. Our next first impression, kind of sort of reaction, is for Asking Alexandria. Now, I believe I have done a proper reaction to an Asking Alexandria track a few years ago, so you're gonna have to check that out. But now they've become a little bit of a different band. Actually, they've been heading this direction for some time. Finn McKenty over on the Punk Rock MBA would call this butt rock, which I think is humorous and kind of a misnomer in a lot of ways, because he kind of just blankets that over a bunch of metal subgenres that he doesn't particularly like himself. And this is kind of, we're going to get into this later, but this is endemic of the scene as a whole, where we're generally accepting, until we get into a subgenre of the genre overall that we all love, we get into a subgenre and, oh, these guys are terrible and they don't know how to play and blah, 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 blah. So that is kind of the hole that Asking Alexandria has been put into by the community, though their fans are pretty ravenous. So I figured I'd give it another try. This is the first time in a while that they have actually charted. Their top 40 as far as the Nielsen SoundScan goes, I believe. So this track is called Alone Again. Not my cup of tea. I don't know what to tell you. The introduction into this song definitely is giving me shades of Unforgiven. There is some things to like about this track. If you are, generally speaking, a metalhead and you listen to a lot of the more aggressive stuff, you're probably going to be disappointed by this. But if you're okay with it just being a more hard rock track, that is where this lies and kind of has this in spades. But they are playing in Metallica's playbook. I don't know that they're bringing a whole lot original to the table anymore. And that was one of the things that I really appreciated about Asking Alexandria in the early days, is they kind of took a couple of those ideas from other bands and then added their own spin on them. And their own spin is something that I feel like is lacking these days. So not a recommend on this one. That's not to say I dislike the band as a whole, just this track really didn't do anything for me. So I guess with that, we're going to move to the next one. And our final reaction for this week, first impression, I guess is more appropriate, is the new Slipknot track. Oh, I didn't know this was coming until the day before, much like most people, because they made the announcement that, hey, we're going to be releasing a new track tomorrow. And then apparently they played it in their November 5th performance. And I did not have tickets for the November 5th performance because I'm broke. I'm not going to lie. So, yeah. Super excited when I knew this one was coming. Had no idea what to expect because this is from the forthcoming record, presumably. Now, we did get the We Are Not Your Kind track that was not on the We Are Not Your Kind record, which is interesting. So this potentially could just be a one-off single like that, though we have no reason to believe one way or the other at this moment. So I'm putting it out there. This is likely going to be on the record. Anyway, the name of the song, Chapeltown Rag, is it is an interesting, so a rag from a musical perspective is kind of what you would think of as like a bar tune from the 20s. Something that people can dance to and is really, really active in the bottom end. A lot of moving bass and a lot of like plinky plinky on top that generally inspires people to drink and dance. This is a very crude definition of what a rag is, or ragtime is a form of jazz that was a lot more widely accepted when it was new. So having that part of the name kind of threw the expectations a little bit. It was like, well, last time when they did this and they released a single before the album came out, it was heavy, but it was very Slipknot. Very Slipknot single, I guess, is more appropriate, because Slipknot on the record versus Slipknot on the singles are kind of two different bands at times. This is not that. This is Slipknot on the record. This is the comparison gets drawn a lot when Slipknot is working on new material. That this is as heavy as Iowa. This is as heavy as Iowa. I have made those comparisons myself, but only from a track-to-track basis. They will never be able to do an entire record that is as intense as Iowa probably ever again. This song, though, feels right at home with all of those tracks on that Iowa record. This could be Iowa 2.0 in the best possible way that I'm saying that. I know that generally speaking, if you're stuck in a sound, that is a bad thing, and that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that this is that level of aggression with an increase in musicianship. All of the things that they have learned as artists since Iowa happened definitely are influencing this, but it is that level of intensity, and it's impressive. And it's not balls out, totally banging your head against the wall the entire time. There is definitely soaring. The choruses are rather soaring, like we have come to expect from Corey Taylor. Corey is doing this new thing with his vocal these days that I super duper appreciate, and he's trying these second drops. Instead of going down to the third, he's going down to the second, and it's very abrasive, but also when it's done the way he does it, it might not even be a second. It might be instead of the fifth, he's going to the fourth. Again, this is a first impression. I haven't really studied the track necessarily. So that being said, it's different. This is a different vocal delivery than you would expect from a band that has multiple top 40 singles, multiple top 40 records. This is proof that there is hope in society, that this band that puts out music like this is as popular as they are. This is amazing. If you haven't listened to it yet, go listen to it a dozen times. You absolutely must. If you are even kind of into heavy music, this should be on repeat. All right, that is all we have for reaction first impressions, and so we're moving over to tours. So our first one is super awesome news in the tour section, and that is Killswitch Engage is finally rescheduling the Atonement Tour. I can't remember if they're rescheduling with different bands or if this was the original lineup, but either way, the rescheduled Atonement Tour is with August Burns Red and Light the Torch, which means Howard is going to be there. And it also means Howard is very likely going to be doing some music with the boys in Killswitch again. And I am freaking excited. So one thing I learned that was not in the press release about this is that if you maintained your tickets from the original tour, the original announcement of the Atonement Tour, which was approximately a year and a half ago, it was supposed to take place shortly after everything got locked down in March. I don't remember the exact date. I would have to consult notes that I couldn't find. So, if you did not get a refund for your tickets from Ticketmaster, then you should still have a valid ticket to go see this tour. I almost bought a second set before I double checked. That's how I found out that I have tickets for this show, and I didn't buy them because I bought them a year and a half ago. It's awesome. I'm super excited about it. I'm just going to keep gushing if we don't move on. So the other tour that we're going to be talking about for today's episode is the band Oakley Dokley. If you do not know who Oakley Dokley is, they are a band with a shtick. They all dress like Ned Flanders, and they use Ned Flanders style lyrics as vocals. The way Ned Flanders talks is the way they write their vocals, and it's hilarious, and it is totally, they did it on a lark, and it went a lot further than they ever planned. I believe the lead singer said something along the lines of, well, we only anticipated this being a thing for like a couple of shows in front of 12 people. We didn't expect to get to the levels that we did. Those levels being, they were featured on an episode of The Simpsons. So that's pretty freaking huge for a bunch of guys who are just doing this very aggressive music as a joke. This is their farewell tour because, they didn't have plans for it to go even this far. So to go beyond this, they're really at a loss. It sounds like they're going to be retreating back to day jobs and so on and so forth, but They are going on one final tour. You can find a link down in the show notes to get tickets if you are so inclined. It's only like 20 or 30 dates, and they're not going to a bunch of different states. They are, again, 20 or 30 dates. So that's a fair size tour. They're just not going to all 50 states, which, I mean, is understandable because they're a fairly small band. Also, the Killswitch Engage tour, if you need tickets, link also down in the show notes. So, that is what we have for tour. Oh, wait, April 14th through May 7th is the tour dates. So just under a month is how long this tour is lasting. So it's 20 dates. And yeah, again, link down in the description. So that's what we have for tours. Let's move into news. So our next piece has to do with Mastodon and kind of Disturbed and also Metal Injection. So Mastodon, guitar player, vocalist Brent Hinds did an interview recently, something he is not generally allowed to do on behalf of the band for reasons we're about to get into. So Brent in this interview said some things that were interpreted as homophobic. I didn't write down the exact thing that he said, but basically he called music that Disturbed makes and music and people who listen to that kind of music the F word, the F word that we're not supposed to say. So it wasn't received very well, though I haven't seen a whole lot of backlash from the actual community, just from the journalists who cover the community. So, I mean, that I should be noted, I suppose. And this is what I was talking about. All right, so let's put our reasonably nerdy hats on real quick. So, a man like Brent Hinds, we already know is kind of a douchebag. So I am going to, out the gate, put these guys on blast. I honestly, personally, I don't care. I don't take offense to the things anyone says about me specifically, or the music I listen to. But I don't care that he used this slur per se. Yes, it is something that a fair amount of listeners take offense to, and that should have been taken into consideration before he said such things. But also, he was using an epithet, regardless of what the epithet was, he was using an epithet for a large portion of his fans. And I think that's the thing that he didn't realize. The metal community is very incestuous in such a way that we listen to pretty much everything. Brent is something of a music snob. The other guys in the band I have known to be similar, but not to the same degree. Brent Hinds, though, is very much a music snob, very much looks down on music he sees as lesser. I remember very specifically him talking about going to interrupt a Korn interview when they were somehow on the same bill, or maybe they were across town from Korn. I can't remember the specifics, but he was going to basically just act like a total asshole to the guys in Korn and hope they didn't realize he was making fun of them because he thought that would be funny. When honestly, the people who listen to his music probably have been listening to Korn for a good decade longer than Mastodon has even been in existence. So, reasonable thing here is Brent Hinds is an asshole. He obviously does not speak for the rest of the band, as when it was voiced that these things were said and there was an issue here, the rest of the band went, whoa, 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 whoa. Brent does not speak for the rest of us. We don't let him do interviews, generally speaking, and this is why. The other reason being, I don't want to be in a metal band is something that he has legitimately said in an interview. It was like 8 years ago, but still, like, these are things that Brent Hinds does in interviews, and he shows up drunk to public appearances. He is not a great representation of not just the band, but the community as a whole, because he is a music snob and a douchebag, and probably has a lot of personal issues that he needs to work through on his own. So, reasonable thing here is probably don't let your asshole guitar player do interviews, but also, on the other side of things, understand that Brent Hinds is an asshole. He's gonna say things that are going to piss you off because he's an asshole. So if you like the music, don't let the asshole be the one that ruins it for you. And then from there, we're past the asshole now. I have to give a little bit of props to Metal Injection, because they're leaving room. They're not trying to get people to stop listening to Mastodon. They're not trying to get people to lynch Brent Hinds in the streets because he said a thing that they disagree with, or because he said a thing that they deem offensive. They are leaving room for him to grow as a person, and that is amazing. This is the first time I have seen a big publication like this leave room for change. They said, I'm definitely not quoting, but they said something along the lines of, if he realizes what he's done is wrong, I don't see why he can't be forgiven, and we can all move on from this. And that is the best thing to take away from all of this. So let's jump into gaming and tech. We have a little bit of everything in here. So we're going to start things off with a tech follow-up. That tech follow-up has to do with Twitter Blue. We talked about this when they first announced that they were doing beta tests on it. It now seems that it is ready, at least ready enough to be rolled out in one of their biggest markets, and that is the US. So Twitter Blue, if you don't remember, is the Twitter subscription service, basically. You pay Twitter $3 a month. You get to scroll through your feed without any ads. You get to basically be a beta tester for things that they are potentially going to be rolling out in other areas, or you just get the perks for a little while and then they deem it not good enough for a mass rollout and then it goes away. But you become a beta tester. A couple of other minor things: you can change your theme, you can change how things are pinned on your personal feed. Fairly minor things that don't seem to be worth $3 a month, to me at least, but it is being rolled out to US users very, very soon. I did not see a date, but they kept saying very soon, so if I can find a date, I'll throw it up on the screen. Otherwise, we're moving on. Our next follow-up has to do with Back 4 Blood. We're not talking about how it's still being outdone by Left 4 Dead on Steam. That's kind of amusing, but that's not what we're talking about. What we are talking about is the DLC roadmap has been released, and you should be, if you're watching my face right now, should be seeing that on your screen. Oh, and it's pretty interesting. There's bug fixes are the big thing this month, and then next month we get some minor releases, and then in January we get new maps, new characters, and a bunch of other bigger things. Just a real quick update on the DLC there. That's what we've got. Let's move into news. So starting things off, we have a new League of Legends game coming. It's called Hextech Mayhem. This is going to be a rhythm-based platformer, I believe is what they described it as. It is going to be launching November 16th on all PC outlets on the Nintendo Switch, and then it eventually, shortly thereafter, or sometime thereafter, because there's no release date for this part, will also be rolling out on Netflix mobile. So that's a thing that's happening. We have one other piece of gaming tech news, and that has to do with Amazon, and this one's a real quick one. Amazon has just announced that in 2022, at some point, again, very vague with these specifics, but in 2022, you will have the option to pay for your Amazon purchases with your Venmo account. Sure. Okay. That was a thing that was needed, I guess. Either way, it's happening. And if you're excited about that, I think you need to get out more. But that's what we got for gaming and tech today, nerds. Now we're talking about comic books and books. No books this episode. We do have some follow-ups on comic books, though, to get to. Our first one, and the biggest one, has to do with the Star Wars book, Crimson Reign. Charles Soule has given us kind of an update of how this links together with the bounty hunter, the War of the Bounty Hunters arc that just ended, and where the Knights of Ren are when all of this is going on. So Knights of Ren are technically around when the original trilogy is happening, and all of these things are just going and going and going, and it's very interesting. I'm very intrigued where this is going to be heading. It will be launching in December. I believe it was December 7th. Oh no, December 7th is the Batman book we're going to talk about. It is December though. He had this to say about the book. In Crimson Reign, there are a lot of things that happen, right? It's very, very cool. It's a big, sprawling story. It's the middle chapter of this trilogy. It's a 3-act structure. Act 1 is setup, Act 2 is complication, and Act 3 is resolution. So this is complication. And one of the complications that happen are that the Knights of Ren pull a heist on Fortress Vader. So they go to Vader's castle on Mustafar and So that's the thing. It's a whole issue built around that idea. So he cut off there, interjecting real quick. It's a whole issue built around that idea. It's going to be what you think it is. Nope. Yeah. It is going to be what you think it is. It's just all of those words in that order make me go, I want to read this. So very interesting information there from Charles Soule. Next, we are talking about Batman. The Joshua Williamson and Jorge Molina tag team is the next creative team that is going to be tackling the franchise. We've talked about this already. I just wanted to share some of the artwork that has been released as a tease for their run on the book. So far, it looks pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Not the biggest fan of Williamson's writing, but this Jorge Molina art is spectacular. This is the kind of art that I really love in my comic books. This is just look and be in awe and wonder and appreciate it, and we gotta move on. So our last piece is also a follow-up here in Comic Books and Books. This has to do with the Comixology deal with Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's new horror book is doing well. I just wanted to share a little bit of artwork from here as well because this looks also amazing, and I'm kind of upset that I haven't been reading it. And this is proof that Snyder's turn away from DC is working out for the better for him, just because the numbers are doing very well, and Comixology is treating him much better than DC ever did. So that's just a thing that needed to be addressed. TV streaming is next. We are talking follow-ups real quick. We do have a Squid Game announcement in the follow-up section, and that is Season 2 has been officially confirmed from the series creator on his Twitter account. We also have a really interesting update continuing with the Squid Game theme. Squid Game has been #1 for a long time on Netflix, and the new Arcane series, which is also a League of Legends property, is the first show to dethrone Squid Game from that #1 spot on Netflix. Which, when I initially read it, was kind of surprising, and then I thought, wait a minute, this is tied to League of Legends. League of Legends is potentially the biggest esports game out there, so much less surprising when you put it into that kind of perspective, right? Next, we have a new trailer, just one new trailer, but a big new trailer, and that is Stranger Things Season 4 has dropped another big trailer. This one is Welcome to California is the name of the video. And link in the description if you want to go check it out, because you absolutely should if you haven't already. This show is gonna be very interesting. I feel like they're being secretive enough that they can pull something amazing out of this, but also the little bits that they have shown have potential to go very, very south. So they haven't done that to us in the past. On the whole, there have been definite slip-ups, but on the whole, everything has been super solid. So I have no reason to believe any other thing than that this season is also going to be super, super solid. Yeah, it's Stranger Things Day happened on I believe it was the 5th of November. So there was a fair amount of Stranger Things bits that were announced. The trailer was just the biggest one of them. Let's move on now into news for this section. First up, we have a very interesting kind of sort of announcement from, what is the name of that production company? Millennium Media. In an interview with THR, Millennium Media president Jeffrey Greenstein told THR, the Hollywood Reporter, that there are a number of projects in pre-development for TV series from their movie IPs. Those projects include Hellboy, Rambo, the Has Fallen series, and the Expendables. There's also a UFC series that's actually into early stages of actual production, so they're working on scouting locations and so on and so forth, whereas these other ones are still being worked out. Who's going to write a spec script? Is there going to be a pilot, or are they just going to order 2 series? Who's going to direct? All of those things still need to be nailed down for the rest of these. But the UFC series, I believe it's called Undisputed, already has writers, and they're looking for a showrunner, and they're starting to scout out locations. The other half of this is not only are they looking to potentially reboot or continue the stories started in these movie franchises, but they also have said that they're going to, or Jeffrey Greenstein actually said that if they do go forward with any of these series, they very likely are going to be recasting any main actors with younger action stars. And then he got into a bit of a issue with the fact that there aren't a whole lot of younger action stars. Most of our action stars are over 50 these days, and that's not exactly young in the state of Hollywood. So it's a very interesting dilemma he finds himself in, being as these are all action-based franchises. So yeah, if any of these come to fruition, we will definitely be keeping tabs on them, but that's all we got, so we're moving right along. Our final piece has to do with Netflix. Netflix had Netflix Festival Japan 2021, and they made some there's a laundry list of announcements that they made. So I'm just going to go over a couple of the highlights. You can follow the link down in the show notes to see the entirety of the list. But we do have Season 2 of Ultraman has been announced, a live-action Yu Yu Hakusho, Gundam live-action movie, and honestly, a boatload. There's a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure thing going on in there. A lot of huge IPs. They're really leaning on this push into Asian markets with the anime, specifically into Japan. Japan seems to be a big focus for Netflix these days, and this is probably going to do fairly well for them. So it's pretty exciting that we get all this awesome anime these days, and even live action versions of anime, even though those are kind of varying degrees of good. Either way, that's what we got for TV streaming for today. Movies section, also fairly large. This is just a big episode. I don't know what to tell you. So first up, and probably the biggest piece, because it's going to bleed over into the rumor mill as well as also a giant piece there, but the Star Wars Rogue Squadron movie that Patty Jenkins is supposed to be doing has just been postponed indefinitely. Yesterday, as I'm filming this, so 2 days ago as you're watching or listening, Patty Jenkins made the announcement that scheduling conflicts are getting in the way, and she doesn't know when she's going to be able to get to it. And then Disney proper said, yes, this has been tabled indefinitely. We don't know when this is happening. Jenkins was also sure to comment that it will still happen. She does still want to make this movie. She is still very motivated to make this movie. Just not exactly right now, apparently. And that then leads very heavily into rumor territory. So we're going to table it until the rumor section. That is what we have for follow-ups. We now have a new trailer for the Ghostbusters Afterlife movie. November 19th is the release date. Super excited about this. Honestly, this trailer just does all the more to hype you up. If you haven't watched it already, go check the link down in the show notes and you can watch it yourself. It's worth a watch. This hype machine is doing everything it needs to. And we get a little bit of Dan Aykroyd in this trailer. So let me know if you catch it down in the comments or on the social medias. We can have that conversation because it's there. You just have to be It's not that hard to miss. You'll catch it anyway. So yeah, that's what we have for that. So next, let's move into news, and we have another Philip K. Dick novel getting adapted into a movie. That novel is Vulcan's Hammer. It's going to be adapted by the same director who brought us the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie, and that is Francis Lawrence, or Francis Lawrence. It's a guy, so I don't know. Yeah, that's all we really have right now. It's super early in development, but sounds interesting. Love Philip K. Dick. Never read Vulcan's Hammer, though I am very interested to read it now. That's what we got, so we're moving on. Next, we're talking about Wicked. The fan favorite musical is getting a movie adaptation as well, and oh my lord, this is... I don't know what to make of this. So it is going to be starring Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo? I don't know which of them is supposed to be playing Elphaba. I would imagine Ariana Grande because she's the bigger name there, and Elphaba is the star of the show, but seems like a pretty interesting casting choice, especially considering Idina Menzel is still acting, though potentially has aged out of this role, which sucks because she's amazing. But either way, yeah, Ariana Grande. Who knew? Also, worth noting on this one, there is a petition going around at petition.org or wherever you do those things to keep James Corden off of the cast, which I find hilarious because of the whole cats thing. Anyway, moving on. Our final piece for the section is actually music related as well, and that is Studio 666. What is Studio 666? It is a movie that the guys in Foo Fighters made starring them. It's a horror comedy movie that has been picked up by Open Road Films. It will be in 2,000 theaters this coming February. February 25th is the opening date. There is going to be an international release date as well, presumably on less theaters in that point. But the 2,000 theaters are stateside. February 25th is when it launches stateside. As more comes out for this one, we will definitely be covering it. It sounds pretty goofy, not gonna lie. It's about the guys in Foo Fighters going to record in a haunted mansion, and then Dave Grohl goes crazy. So what more could you ask for? Rumor mill. We've got a fair amount. So without any further ado, we're going to address those Star Wars rumors. So first things first, the indefinite postponement of Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron has left open a big gap in what we know we're getting for Star Wars, because the things that we know absolutely are still happening are the Taika Waititi movie and the Kevin Feige movie. Those two things are still on the books. They still have tentative release dates. And then also, supposedly, we have the Rian Johnson trilogy is still somewhere in the works. The last we heard was from Johnson and Disney saying, yes, that is still going to happen sometime in the future. That one is not necessarily in production in any way at the moment, so we're going to just ignore the Rian Johnson movies. And Taika Waititi, Feige, and Jenkins were supposed to be the next 3 Star Wars movies that we were going to be getting, presumably sometime in short succession, be it a year or two between them. It was going to happen rather quickly. Well, now Jenkins' movie has been postponed, and all talk about Feige's movie has kind of died off. So the only one that even still kind of has buzz is Waititi's movie. And then all of the rumors started going crazy about a week ago, saying that Rogue Squadron was going to get bumped. And then we got the announcement that Rogue Squadron got postponed, and now we're getting an Old Republic movie. This is not, so according to all of the sources, there are plenty of sources on this one, but according to all of them, this is not going to be a retelling of the story from the Knights of the Old Republic video game, either of them, the first or the second. This is going to be a new story that exists in the universe at the same time as the timeline of those two games. So this presumably is not going to be related to either of those other two movies, the Waititi movie or the Feige movie. So very interesting, super excited about it. Likelihood that this is the way it's going. Ooh, this is a really tough one to call because there's so many sources here. It's kind of hard to ignore all of this information, all of these insiders and leakers and stuff making these announcements, especially days before it was announced that the Rogue Squadron movie was moving by Disney. Disney made that announcement. So that definitely lends a lot of credence to this. It's very exciting news, if it is news, but the probability that this rumor is going to come to light is pretty high, I gotta say. We're looking at like a 75. This is kind of outside my comfort zone, but 75% likelihood that we are going to be seeing an Old Republic movie in the near future. Our next rumor has to do with Wonder Woman 3. This is another Patty Jenkins vehicle. This one, though, has not been postponed, though we'll get into that. So this rumor says that we're going to be seeing Sasha Calle's Supergirl as well as Hawkgirl, who is yet to be cast in this movie. So we do have a couple of things playing for this. That is Sasha Calle, Supergirl, already going to be in The Flash. It would make sense that she would also be here, especially if it is revealed in the Flash movie that she is part of the main universe, which Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot are doing. Also, Hawkgirl was made very explicitly known that she could not be in the Black Adam project because DC had other plans for her, which lends towards this rumor's credibility as well. But there is one big piece that is going against this so far, and that is Patty Jenkins. Now, she didn't specifically say what the scheduling conflicts were for the Star Wars issue. It could be this, though. She has said that in no uncertain terms that she has not yet begun work on Wonder Woman 3. She also has said she might not even be the one to do Wonder Woman 3. So if that's the case, then they still have to find writers and a director for this movie. So for us to know that these two characters are going to exist in a movie that does not have a script yet is kind of far-fetched. So at the most, we could only go 50% on this one. Honestly, I feel like that's even a little high. I'm going to put this one right about 35% likelihood that these two characters will show up in Wonder Woman 3. This next rumor is kind of exciting, potentially. So X-Men, the animated series, has been rumored previously to be getting a reboot, and this is a new rumor saying that there is going to be another X-Men the Animated Series. So the rumor does specify that it is not necessarily going to be a continuation from the original animated series. It also says that it might not even be in the same vein as the original animated series, because we do know that Kevin Feige likes to do things the way Kevin Feige wants to do them. So being that the original animated series was very much in line with the original 90s comics, the 90s comics, probably means that if Feige has his hand in it, like he will, then it's not going to be that. So the fact that the rumor specifically states this plays to its favor. Original director and producer on the 90s animated series, Larry Houston, has made it known that he is very willing to rejoin his compatriots, that ones that are still with us, to make such a series, though Disney Plus has yet to reach out to him, as he has very explicitly stated numerous times in the not too distant past. So, likelihood that we're going to be getting an animated X-Men, the animated series. So this is a difficult one to call because, again, long enough timeline, anything becomes 100% possible. So we're going to look at this in a relatively short time frame. So we'll say within the next 3 to 5 years, what is the likelihood that we are going to be seeing an X-Men animated series? The likelihood that we are going to see some sort of reboot series, some sort of original X-Men animated series, seems pretty likely down the longer end of that road. So closer to 5 years, yes, I believe we will see an X-Men animated series. The likelihood that that animated series is going to have anything at all to do with the original 90s animated series is pretty low. We're going to say probably 70% likelihood we'll see it be within 5 years. That it's going to be related to the 90s, probably 20%. I would be very surprised if it really had anything to do with that 90s series, sadly. So our next set of rumors have to do with Spider-Man No Way Home. So Spider-Man No Way Home has some quote-unquote leaked images, 2 very specific leaked images, which hopefully I can get on screen right here for those of you watching. If you're not watching, youtube.com/generallynerdy. Anyway, I'll put on the screen first. This is the picture that is supposedly revealing that all 3 Spider-Mens from the recent movie past are going to be in this movie, namely Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland. This image is very easily picked out to be fake. The biggest tell is the levels of black are not the same, very specifically on Tobey Maguire. The Andrew Garfield image is a little bit harder to tell. Andrew Garfield part of the image, I should say, is a little harder to tell because he's a little further towards the background, so it's hard. He's a little more blurry, not close to the camera. Tobey Maguire, however, is rather close to the camera, and the black levels on him, and I wish I could go into greater detail, but it's kind of difficult when we're doing such a long episode. But either way, anyone who's worked at anything extensively with Photoshop can tell you that those are composited images. The second image that is potentially a little more likely. I would have to look at this one a little bit more. That there is the possibility that this one is also doctored, though it is a much better Photoshop job because there is no obviously glaring issues with this one. So this one could be true. And this one is showing us Daredevil, Charlie Cox playing Daredevil in the movie. So potentially that one is legit. The other one, no, absolutely not. So percentages here. We got to give percentages because that's how this section works. So percentage that the first image is legit. I'm going to put that at 5%. There is very little possibility. It is possible, but there's very little possibility that that is a legitimate image. As far as the Charlie Cox image, I'll put that one at about 50%. I really could go either way on that one. There's some things that look like they might be a little sketch, but it's also not the greatest quality of image, so that could just be chalked up to image quality. So yeah, that's where we're sitting with that. But there is another rumor about Spider-Man. This one is post No Way Home. This rumor says that we're going to be seeing Spider-Man wearing the Venom symbiote in whatever movie follows Spider-Man No Way Home. So this one has the same glaring issue that Wonder Woman Volume 3 has, and that is there is no way at this point in time we know that information. This rumor, while potentially could actually happen, right now that information does not exist. So the fact that this rumor exists is 100% rumor. So we're putting this one at 0% likelihood that the next, and again, long enough timeline, sure, potentially anything can happen. But right now as it stands, 0% chance that there is anything that is resembling a true statement in that rumor. And then our final rumor for the episode has to do with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. A new rumor has surfaced stating that they will reveal the son of T'Challa and Nakia in the movie, and presumably he is going to be the next Black Panther, and then they're going to have battles as to who's going to hold the throne until he's old enough to challenge for it or whatnot and so forth and whatever. This one seems potentially accurate because this very much is in line with the way Disney does things. So as a way to elicit an emotional response from the audience, as a way to continue Black Panther in a reasonable way, because this isn't a bad thing. This is very potentially going to be a great way to do this. This isn't the best source. I will say that. So I can't go super high with this, even though I think this is a fantastic way to do what they want to do. The likelihood for this is probably right about 65%. A little more likely than not, but not the greatest source, and only one source talking about it. So I can't give it much more than that, and even that's probably a little generous. That being said, that is all we have for the rumors today, nerds. And that is the end of the episode. What did I miss? What should we talk about in the next one? Let me know in the comments down low if, though, you want to go deeper in the conversation. Jump over to the website, generallynerdy.net, patreon.com/generallynerdy to support and do all the things. Find me on the social medias. Look for that nerdy ninja who is, right here on my shirt today. And yeah, we'll do all the things and have all the fun. Thank you very much, nerds. If you're falling behind in your nerd news and you want to catch up, you can click or tap one of the boxes that show up there to the left of my face. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all of the things. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.